So I began to set out on how to solve the problem of teenager motivation in the art classroom. My research question was, does multicultural curriculum connected to real-world issues motivate students in the art room? The methodology choice that I went with was quasi-experimental design. I decided to separate my beginning art students into two separate groups. One would be Group A, which would be provided district curriculum with higher order thinking activity. They were to watch a video that the district provided on how to connect the elements of art and design into content creating meaningful artwork. And then Group B was a lesson designed by me, which was based off Sydney Walker's Big Idea worksheet and brainstorming. The project that I planned for my students was to study the history of printmaking, introduce Keene Hyde-Wiley as a contemporary artist, and complete their own prints by working independently in the classroom. So the methods that I chose to collect data were through photos, which I will show you in a couple slides, completed work, just grades in general, how many students actually completed their work, brainstorming worksheets, class discussions, and interviews among students and code workers. I've attached a picture of the worksheet that my Group B students got from the lesson plan that I designed that was more of a multicultural curriculum, and they were to experiment with a word bank with big ideas. My analysis, I went ahead and interviewed some coworkers in addition to the students. The coworkers' responses were similar in reaction to outdated district curriculum. They believe that connections happen with students to make meaningful artwork through bonds or emotions, and that their best lesson plans were those that were content created around meaningful art making. In my own personal research, the students that did the big idea worksheet, they were allowed to choose any big idea that they wanted, and I gave them this big long list. 22% of students connected with coming of age or childhood related topics. I found that these are very family driven ideas of motivation. Then 16.7% of students connected with fear of failure, especially this year in general. A lot of the students have a fear of failure. 11% of students identified with themes of love, whether that be positive or heartbreak. And lastly, 2.7% students connected with injustice. Now, I have a lot more percentages that add up with different categories, but these were the main groupings. The reason why I highlighted 2.7% of students with injustice is because I was surprised that this category was not higher, especially with that being a big motivational factor for students outside of the classroom with big movements that are happening right now. Here is an example. These are student examples of those that had the big idea content behind them. They were able to choose, they worked independently, they created a theme, they printed on construction paper or white paper, and then they were to paint a silhouette that kind of tied everything together on top of it. In the top left corner, you can see the effects of technology on students, body positivity, generational heritage, fear of failure, and heroism through a student's father who he looks up to as a hero who's a firefighter. Here's examples of my Group A, which did not have any kind of structure or big idea generated art making. So this was essentially a test to see if the students were going to be motivated to make artwork if there was no meaning behind it. They got to choose the pattern design that they wanted, just like Keene Hyde-Wiley's patterns in his paintings, and then they were to create a silhouette on top, just as the last group did, that kind of tied the theme together. So you can see here there's a lot of nature, butterflies, a dog silhouette, some different pattern designs. Moving forward, my last reflection in themes, I decided to kind of break it down. This is how I choose to kind of introduce new content first, give them a little bit of that old school master, but provide racially diverse curricula. Then offer a big idea. I found that this exponentially helped my students to kind of motivate them to make meaningful artwork. Like I said before, the big keys were family, growth, and emotions. Then the planning process, encourage them to do writing, labeling, and symbols. That really worked. The thumbnail sketches, as well as the Sydney Walker play with experimentation, kind of with big ideas anything that has to do with Venn diagrams or personal map making. And lastly, all of those things lead to meaningful art making where students are proud and motivated to reach the finish line. I found that my major themes on the left, I kind of broke it down: multicultural curriculum, finding what motivates the students, great brainstorming ideas, and then the meaningful art making, most importantly, allows them to share their ideas with others. So I found that my research was influential and that multicultural curriculum does actually aid and benefit in student motivation in the classroom.